call to order the Monday, October 27th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at 6:03 p.m. We will have the invocation by Commissioner Yoakum and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Klob. Please stand if you're able to.
Please join me in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of Maricopa. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leader our people need. Help us to treat all persons with reverence and understanding. Protect our soldiers around the world as they defend our liberty. Finally, Father, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of your helping to build our community. Confident in your goodness and love, we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That'll take us to roll call, please.
Commissioner Brems. Commissioner Robertson. Here. Commissioner Singleton.
Here.
Commissioner Yoakum.
Here.
Commissioner Klob.
Here.
And Commissioner Thomas. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. That'll take us to the call to the public. If you wish to speak, please complete a speaker card and submit it to the chairman prior to the start of the meeting. The procedures to follow if you address the commission are: Commission requests that you express your ideas in 3 minutes or less and refrain from any personal attacks or derogatory statements about any city employee, a fellow citizen, or anyone else, whether in the audience or not. The chairman will limit discussion whenever he deems such an action appropriate to the proper conduct of the meeting. I do not have any speaker cards. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come up and speak? Seeing none, I will close the call to the public. That'll take us to agenda item 4.1, minutes. The commission shall approve minutes from the October 13th, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion for approval?
Through the chair.
Yes.
I need to abstain from the vote. I didn't attend last week's meeting or last meeting.
Okay.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes. That'll take us to the regular agenda, DRP 24-12. This is a Planning Commission update. Major Development Review Permit Case number DRP 24-12, Buffalo Wild Wings. They request Peter Vesky on behalf of Vespro for review of site, floor, elevation, landscape, and photometric plans for a proposed restaurant building on approximately 1.47 acres of land within the city of Maricopa, generally located north of the northeast corner of West Maricopa Casa Grande Highway and North Stonegate Road. This is for discussion only. Derek, take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner Singleton. Chairman Singleton, sorry. Commissioners, Derek Shearer with the Planning Division of the Development Services Department, here to present the next item. This is for Buffalo Wild Wings, DRP 24-12. The applicant for this project is Peter Vesky for Vespro Professional Services Incorporated. The location is just north of the northeast corner of West Maricopa, Casa Grande Highway, and North Stonegate Road. Sorry, a little typo there. Project area is approximately 1.47 acres in size, and this is a development review permit for a proposed sit-down restaurant. As we can see here on the site plan, that's also in the commissioner's packet, the applicant is proposing a 7,644 square foot Buffalo Wild Wing restaurant on the site with approximately 120 off-street parking spaces, 2 full access points along the southern private driveway that you see on the screen that says example private road, and this development will not be phased. Here we see some of the elevations. On the top, we have the east elevation. That east elevation is going to be facing the, pardon me, a little bit of technical here. I had another site plan in here to show you. But facing east, where you see the doors there on the Buffalo Wild Wing building, that will be the front of the building. Then on the north elevation, that's facing the parking lot to the north, And then here we have the west elevation that's facing Stonegate Road and the south elevation that's facing that private drive. This is the second submittal that we've had on this project. This is a 2024 DRP. Staff has worked for almost the last year with the applicants on refining the site, being able to incorporate all of the parking that is needed for the Buffalo Wild Wings. It does exceed our requirements. However, a traffic impact letter from the applicant's traffic engineer has called out that this level of parking, 120 spaces, is needed for the demand of this use. So with that, the access points really needed to be concentrated on how we could put that much parking on this 1.47 acre site, but then also working with the development to the south, if the commission can remember, is a Circle K that was presented about in July to the commission, I believe. And we needed to line up these driveways so there was no cross conflicts when anyone is entering or exiting either site, that these driveways line up together, and then also create enough space for the Circle K to the south with their turnarounds for their fuel trucks and their deliveries to be able to make that wide turn that they need to get through the driveways, then also be able to stack enough vehicles at that intersection of the private road and Stonegate Road to create a safe vehicular environment. Staff believes that we have, after working this past year with the applicant, their engineer, our city engineer, our traffic engineer, all hands on deck, kind of how do we fit this peg into this hole. And this is what we've come up with. This is the technical second review of this. There are still some outstanding comments, especially on the elevations that we see. Staff has some concerns on that west elevation. Those comments have been given to the applicant. The applicant is in the process of addressing those to create a more front-facing building on that west side that fronts on Stonegate that'll better match what that front elevation is on that east side. This is the one side that actually faces a public right-of-way, Stonegate Road, so we'd like more attention on it. Oh, thank you. And I went through all of them. My apologies. And this is why, and I'm missing that one site plan, and it's slipped in here, and it's under one of those little stars to bounce in. My apologies. I will do better next time. With that being said, prior to any approvals for this, the application will conform to all aspects of the zoning ordinance and our design codes. The zoning for the site is compliant for this use, and so is a general plan future land use map designation. Notification letters of this meeting were sent out on October 9th, and the site was posted on October 10th. Staff has not received any public comment on the proposal, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have. And also, Peter Vasecki is here to answer any questions you may have of him. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Commission, questions, comments, concerns? Commissioner Club.
Through the chair, thank you. To share kind of the concern on the west elevation, and this is one of the challenges that I run into with the renderings that cities have been receiving for years. I'm not picking on Maricopa, I'm picking on pretty much everybody. These static two-dimensional, they just don't tell the story. And I think that if we saw an actual three-dimensional, view with shadow lines and so on, that this elevation would look completely different. Does it need a little more pizzazz because it's it fronts an arterial street? I think it does, and being such a high traffic with Home Depot and so on. So I think that needs a little bit of work. Overall, I really like the concept. I like what they're doing. I like their change of materials. The other comment I had is on the parking lot, and this is a really minor nitpicking thing, and I'm sure that as it kind of digs down a little bit, it'll probably work its way out. Up in the upper left-hand corner, the northwest corner, there's that little wedge where the 90-degree parking connects to the angle parking, and that's just asking for someone to back into each other and cause a problem. And I drive a big truck, so it, I think that if that whole line of parking just went at a an obtuse angle to the property line that would probably solve that entire problem. But that's just kind of a funky spot that I think that's going to be a potential conflict area in the future for our residents and for our police that are going to come out and have to resolve those issues. The other last one I had was more of it's a comment of thanking the applicant for putting the patio on the west side so that everyone can sit out there and watch games and have a cold beverage in the summer and not be hit with the blaring summer heat. Let the building shield that. So often I see that where they don't take that into consideration. So I want to thank the applicant on that one. And I apologize, Derek, did you have any comments to make on that site plan, that parking thing?
Chairman Singleton, Commissioner Klob, yes, in agreement with the comments that you've made so far. That west elevation, if there were 3D renderings, I think it would pop a bit better, because when you look at this, if you look at the north elevation, you look at that left side, the right side, see how the building comes, steps down, everything like that. But when we get to that west elevation there, it looks like a solid black box. Mm-hmm. It looks flush. It doesn't show that is actually protruding out of the building, that we do have all of this movement on that roof line. We do have the differences in the color palette there that I do believe you're correct. In a 3D rendering, it would look a lot different and may not need as much extra detail as you would think just looking at this. Staff has taken that into account with their comments to the applicant that are currently being addressed. And then for the parking,
yeah.
That is a funky corner. It was a Herculean effort to be able to fit all of this inside this space here. They were very limited. They're limited also that with neighboring properties not being able to have shared parking or cross-access parking or anything like that. So this needed to stand on its own within its confines. And pulling everything in, angling everything right, utilizing our compact car spacing where appropriate, and full-size car spacing everywhere else. It did take quite a trial and effort, and then also lining that up with the driveways to make sure the driveways are wide enough that for safe vehicular travel through there, and then also for fire services.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I recognize that, and I think the applicant's done a good job with trying to coordinate everything. And the last little piece I'll have is more of a comment as a person who lives within walking distance of this location. It can't get built fast enough. So with that, I'll turn it back over. Thank you.
Commissioner Yocum.
Yeah, I agree with the parking comments that were made. And also, I want to make sure, we have mentioned here that the two ways in and out are going to be on a private road, which is going to be adapted to 36 feet. And I think we have to keep a very, very close watch on that, because I don't know what condition that road is in right now. I didn't have a chance to drive by it. That's it.
Oh, that's it?
Thank you.
Commissioner Robertson.
Thank you, Derek, for the presentation. Great project. You guys have been working on it a long time. Appreciate the efforts for everybody. Along with what Commissioner Yocum said, the existing private road, also known as Roller Coaster Road, is there an opportunity as this stretch develops to get that road corrected?
Chair Singleton and Chairman Commissioner
You can
Robertson.
get air on that road.
Yes. As the developments are occurring on the north side of this road, the road will be, I don't want to say fixed, but will be addressed, that it'll be able to handle the volumes that the new businesses here will see the increase of. That will be worked out with the city engineer and the engineering division for the city, working with the property owners there and the developers to make that road better than it is now.
Okay. It's going to face some widening on that half of the road?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So right here to the south of the building, the road is widening a little to be able to create enough space so that these large delivery trucks
Right.
will be able to turn out without going into opposing lanes and creating a traffic hazard.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree with Commissioner Klob. This can't get built fast enough. My only comment is, and I don't know how feasible or if there's, if that development to the north isn't wanting this, but there is a driveway cutout already in that northwest corner. And that could have potentially been used for those large delivery vehicles that you're mentioning. And connecting to that versus 2 points of ingress and egress on the south side of it. Just a comment, because I drive by it all the time. I'm like, who's going to attach into that? It's just sitting there, already built in the northwest corner, and would give a point of entrance and exit there. But maybe the development to the north said no. I don't know. But that's really my only comment.
Thank you, Chair Singleton. Yes, staff and the applicant reviewed that. As you can see on the vicinity map here, you can see those dotted lines with those streets. A while back, a townhouse subdivision had been approved on that lot, actually 2 lots. It never got to recordation. That DRP and then the proposal for that is, I don't want to say gone by the wayside at this point, but it's treading water. We don't know the status of it, whether it'll be coming in as a full revision or a partial revision. And staff looked at making access along North Stonegate Road, or possibly if there could be any sort of cross-access opportunities from this property to the other. The property owners in this area were engaged together doing a replat of the area. A number of these lots were sold by Meets and Bounds, which then we had to replat, and staff, with planning staff and the engineering staff, along with the applicants and the property owners here, went back through all the property records to correct all the replatting of it. The owners of the property to the north, I don't believe, were very interested in having that cross traffic. They already have a dedicated curb cut that you can see right north of where it says site, that lines up with the curb cut for the Home Depot for their entrance. So putting one there would have created difficulties, because if you can barely see that there is a turn lane already installed for that. So they would have been entering and exiting already in a turn lane. Then there is also some drainage concerns right there. So it was very difficult to try and put one there. We did try, but ultimately they all had to go on the south.
Cool. Commissioner, any other questions, comments, concern? All right. We will move on to 7.2, DRP 25-18. This is also a Planning Commission update, major development review permit case number DRP 25-18, Southbridge Marketplace North, a request by John Barclay of Upward Architects for review of site, landscape, elevation, and utility plans for a proposed multi-building commercial development on an approximately 5.78 acres of land within the city of Maricopa, generally located at the northeast corner of West Hunnicutt Ave and North John Wayne Parkway. This is for discussion only. Take away again, Derek.
Thank you, Chairman Singleton. The applicant, as you said, for this project is John Barclay of Upward Architects. This is the Phase 2 portion of the Southbridge Marketplace that includes Shops B, Pads A, and B. What you see there where it says site and it's highlighted, this is more of the western side, the second phase. I'll get to other portion in a moment. The overall entire site is 8.48 acres. This is just a portion of it. This is development for a 10,000 square foot multi-tenant commercial building, a 6,500 square foot multi-tenant commercial building with a restaurant, and a 3,200 square foot building with a restaurant. As you can see here on the splash, I've highlighted the 3 buildings in the areas that are under consideration right now. The previous ones on the east side, Aldi, Shops A, Pad C, and Pad D, those have already gone through the development review process and have obtained their DRP approvals and are under construction drawing review right now. This is the DRP for the other half of it. The applicant at the time did not know who or what was happening on this side. It didn't have it dialed in exactly, so they came in with this as a Phase 2. That was part of the original DRP, that this would be a Phase 2, and now we have it very shortly after the original one. As we can see here, without that splash, zoomed in a little bit more on the buildings of concern. So we have Shop B all the way at the top, the 10,000 square foot multi-tenant building that'll have multiple tenant spaces in it. It can be divided into many different ways to accommodate any commercial uses. We have parking behind, and then also the drainage basin that's landscaped. Going south of that, which is right at the northeast corner of West Honeycutt Avenue and John Wayne Parkway, we have Pad A and Pad B. Pad A is going to be the larger 6,500 square foot building that is going to have commercial retail space and then also a restaurant component. The design of the building for its footprint is, if you can think of the Mod building or Crumble Cookie building, where Ono Hawaiian is going in with their drive-through, same similar concept. While the building to the south, Pad B, that is a pure standalone drive-through restaurant. Here we have the elevations. This is Pad A. These elevations may look familiar because they are following what was already approved before with not Aldi, but the shops A, Pad C, Pad D. So we're following the same architectural theme for all of these buildings, creating a concise, unified development theme. We can see here the south and north elevations. This is all for the Pad A, which is that larger, 6,500 square foot multi-tenant building. Pad B is a standalone restaurant. And then shops B that are attached to Aldi. While you see on that east elevation in the top right corner, you see the brick wall because that's what's up against Aldi. They are being built separately, but they will be unified and fire rated between each other. Prior to any approval of this DRP, the applicant will meet all of the applicable regulations of the zoning ordinance. The site is currently zoned shopping center, which is appropriate for the proposed uses, and the general plan future land use map is appropriate for the development. Notification letters for this meeting were sent out to property owners within 600 feet on October 10th. On October 10th as well, the site was posted advertising this meeting. Staff has not received any public comment on the proposal, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Also, for the commission, the developers are present, so if you have any specific questions, you may ask them.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek. Commissioner Club.
Through the chair. Thank you, Derek. Couple things that I have on this one. Yeah, that's a good one to stop on. Behind Shops B, it looks like there's a retention area behind it. Is that, I know we're going to have kind of an access road that's going to go back under the overpass, and is that any future planning for that spot, or is it always going to be retention landscape?
Chair Singleton, Commissioner Klob, no, I believe this is needed retention. There is a retention basin that you see sort of in that top left. You see all the lines going down. It's a rather large retention basin right there. This one was needed to be picked up. And then behind that, you can see the two arrows pointing this way and that way. That is the extension of Edwards Avenue that is going under the overpass and then behind these buildings and then connecting to there. We can see the private drive coming up, separating between Shops A and Lowe's. It'll connect to that Edwards Avenue extension going behind. Edwards Avenue right-of-way will end at the bridge and not continue behind here. This will be more of a private drive, but it'll still provide access for everyone that is living over by the high school or all the future developments for Hojan's Farms, Palomino Ridge, and all of that, that they'll have two opportunities, whether to continue through Edwards Avenue under the bridge to come shopping here, or to go through Honeycutt Avenue, go in front of the high school and then the hospital and the street light there that you'll see coming in right there on the bottom with Honeycutt Avenue.
Okay. So no plans for any development in that corner
No.
then? Okay. If we can go to the elevations real quick. So the only, and I realize we're kind of following what we already have, and so this is more just a comment. The north elevation there, the proportions just seem a little off. It seemed with the columns and the kind of the pediment above, just kind of, to me, throws the proportions off a little bit, but overall, I think it works. I think it's fine. The other one, the last one is, if we can go back to the site plan. Actually, just show the pad A and pad B, that one. Thank you. As planners and as, you know, planning and zoning and you know, I've been doing this a long time, and we all have those cases where we regret letting go forward and moving forward. I'm not saying this is a regret on this project. I think it's a very needed project. I think it's a very good project. The challenge I have is we did a project when I was in Chandler that there were 5 drive-throughs that came through on one site, and we were assured by the developer, oh, don't worry, they won't be anything of high intensity. Guess what? That one site was a Dutch Bros, one site, you know, and then there's the other sites that are already in Chandler that I think there's a Chick-fil-A, there's a In-N-Out, you know, that share the same, you know, drive lanes right on Gilbert and the 202. And it's just a mess, especially at lunch. And I see kind of that happening here a little bit. As these 2 drive aisles converge, you know, there's been speculation on who they are that nobody's saying here, so I'll leave it alone. But if one of the sites is true on who it is, then the reality is highly, because everywhere else they're successful, you know, there'll be a lot of traffic here. And we combine that with the 2 drive-throughs plus possibly 1 or 2 more restaurants in this same little area. And my challenge is with the congestion that is going to happen here. I don't see an alternative to it, but I'm just raising a red flag that I think this is going to be a problem child going forward. And as much as I like this project and I really want it to go forward, I just hear people screaming and yelling like they do about those sites in Gilbert and Chandler today, and including Chandler's, you know, staff and what have you. So I'll throw that one back out for a discussion, but I like it. My crystal ball saying it's cloudy.
Chair Singleton, Commissioner Klob, thank you. Yes, staff worked with the developers on this, and we had the exact same concerns of what it could be now or what it could transition to in the future. And we worked hard to get those drive-throughs pushed over to that west side to create as much stacking space as we could. And the limitations that they had, going back to the site plan, you see how it sort of necks down like a funnel, and this is the bottom of the funnel. As you can see, east of Pad B, west of Pad D there. Originally that was proposed to be a full access intersection, and it was, no, that would not fly right here when we go back to the original site plan and look where the intersection is there. So this is a right in, right out only, with a very large pork chop there that'll prevent anyone from turning left right into there to go against any sort of these conflicts of the exiting from there. So it'll drive traffic from Honeycutt Avenue up through that split road between the Lowe's and this development, then to pull in either between Pad C and Pad D, or go all the way up to the Shops A, come in and around, and get the traffic out of the Honeycutt Avenue right-of-way, try and take it off of the private drives, keep it internalized, and try and lengthen those drive-throughs as much as we could, because we all know, as you said, those are the heavy hitters. The top 3, I don't want to say like usual suspects of, you need some extremely long queuing for those uses. And we tried in this to be able to put as many spaces as we could. And then it'll be up to the operations of the site to make sure that it's flowing smoothly. If there are issues with that, or if there are any code violations, our code department will be out there and they'll have to adjust their traffic plans on how they deal with how people are stacking and not blocking any parked vehicles, not blocking any travel lanes, not blocking the fire lane access all around.
Yeah, and I look back at some of, and I'll just pick on the development I already mentioned that has the In-N-Out and the Chick-fil-A right next to each other, and you go there at lunch, and even some of the other businesses that are in that little shopping center, when I was with Chandler, the feedback that we got from them was, we can't get our customers here. So they're getting all their customers, but we can't get ours. And like I said, it's turned into a problem child. And I try and avoid it wherever possible. I think you guys have done a great job of you know, bringing in more queuing space and longer lines than we probably see anywhere else in the city. But yeah, this is a prime location for, you know, some of the big guys, heavy hitters to come play. So the last little one that I just noticed is coming out of Pad B, the drive-through there. As someone who drives a full-size pickup, trying to turn right to go onto Honeycutt Road, that's going to be a tight turn.
Yes, we worked on that. Originally, it elbowed up a little bit more. It was very tight. I think we went through at least 2 iterations, maybe a 3rd iteration before we settled on that curve there, because it was too tight to do a full U-turn in a large vehicle, not a typical large vehicle, a typical Ford F-150, F-250 kind of vehicle. To be able to safely make that without jumping the curb, damaging the curb or any landscaping, and then still be able to get out safely through that pork chop.
Yeah.
We did have the building slightly shifted over, and that really looked at. We had the traffic engineers, we had our fire plans reviewers also looking at that, making sure that that angle there would be able to be met by all the EMS vehicles and the fire trucks.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Yocum.
Derek, my only comment is on the elevations. The illustrated elevations that you gave us are very, very plain, nothing on them. And I know this is an early presentation that we're looking at right now, but I would assume that those elevations would be somewhat dressed up. When the different occupants come in, they'll be putting their signage and displays on them. And we want to make sure that they're compatible with whatever the design is that the developer puts on it.
Chair Singleton, Commissioner Yocum, yes. The applicant is proposing a comprehensive sign plan that'll unify the signage, already has for the site. Where you see sort of like in the gray where it's dashed out, we had them put where the potential signage is over there. You can't really see it over the wood. The colors that were used on the elevation, they don't really translate as well as the color board and the material board that they're proposing. The colors are a lot deeper, a lot richer. These seem a little washed out. And going back to what Commissioner Klob had said about these 2D renderings, sometimes they are difficult to tell exactly what's going on with it, to watch the full shadow lines of where these columns are and the horizontal and the vertical movements on the building. But from following what was proposed previously under the DRP, these are matching it, and with the other ones, we did have a set of those 3D renderings, and staff is confident that this is going to follow those, and we are, at the staff level, pleased with it. It just doesn't translate as well on these images that you're seeing right now.
Thank you, Derek. I just have one other comment. I get questioned, comments, whatever, about all these probably 2 or 3 times a week. Yet everybody is asking, when is all these? First of all, is all these coming? Because it was on again, off again, it was back and forth. And now it looks like they are coming, and at least I can give all of these folks some kind of a definitive answer. So, thanks for your efforts.
Yes,
Appreciate
all these, I believe, is coming. They have their construction drawings in. They've either are imminent approval or have just been approved. I'm not quite sure on the status of it, but they're in and they've been reviewed. And you know that's the best information I can give on that.
Thanks, Derek.
So I kind of echo Commissioner Klob's comment on this rendering right here. The columns aren't symmetrical for, you know, north versus south elevation. And for me, it kind of does throw my OCD off a little bit. But can we go back to the site plan? Yeah, right. So Pad B, that exit reminds me of the Taco Bell exit near Bashas', where every single time I am forced to go left because my F-150 will not make that turn, and the amount of people I've seen hop the curb and either pop their tire or destroy the landscaping is way too much. I don't know the solution. I don't think the one that's presented right now is the solution for it, because everybody's going to just go left, because making that right out, you know, for somebody in an SUV or a truck, which is a majority of Maricopa, it seems like these days, is going to be difficult, and then you're going to get stuck in the queue of either pad B or pad A or any other, you know, patron coming to pad D or C, right? I would like to potentially see something different. And yeah, during lunchtime, this is going to be a hot mess. I've seen In-N-Outs, not saying that this is going here, but I've seen In-N-Outs where they've closed off access, like coming right in, and they've chained it off because their queue is now going through the parking lot and wrapping around, and so now I can't get to another shop because, you know, that drive-through is 30 cars deep and I can't back out of a parking spot because I'm blocked in by the drive-through line. That could potentially happen here with pad B, right? I don't know how we mitigate that, but I've seen that quite often with a lot of the heavy hitters, as we keep saying. I just don't know a solution, but I certainly know that when that does happen, Facebook will be blowing up, complaining about this, even though they asked that they want these heavy hitter restaurants here. But yeah, I don't know of a good solution. We can't flip it. Yeah, just something to be aware of, that it's most likely going to happen, because as we saw when Slim Chickens opened up, they did record sales the first week, and that's probably what will happen here, right? And we'll probably have 50 to 60 cars deep in each drive-through. But it does concern me that these drive-throughs are just going to overflow all the time. So, yeah, that's my comment. Commission, any other? No? All right. You're off the hook, Derek. That'll take us to 7.3 TXT 25-01. This is a public hearing. TXT 25-01 text amendment, a request by the City of Maricopa for review and approval of proposed miscellaneous text amendments to the Maricopa City Code, Section 17.20-050, preliminary plots, Section 17-20-060. And do I have to read this entire thing? Because this is a mouthful. Final plat, Section 17-30-040, recreation and tot lot design requirements, Section 18.40, commercial districts, 18.75, food courts, 18.75.030, mixed use heritage development standards, Section 18.80.110, screening, Section 18.90, landscape, Section 18.120.240, group homes, Section 18.120.260, temporary uses, Section 18.120.300, food court, mixed use heritage, Section 18.130 or 135.020, city council, Section 18.135.030, planning commission, Section 18.35.050, development service director, Section 35-060, should that be an 18.35?
18.35.
Okay, 18.35.060, hearing officer, Section 18.18.135.070, zoning administrator, Section 18.135.110, review authorities, Section 18.140.050, neighborhood meeting notification, Section 18.140.060, public hearing notification, and last but not least, Section 18.205.020, list of definitions, and this is for discussion and action.
Thank you, Chairman. If it's any consolation, it wasn't a whole lot of fun typing all that either. Y'all, throughout the years, we've come to y'all with multiple text amendments. And I just wanted to touch base real quick on you know, why we do these. You know, they're necessary from time to time to, you know, bring the code into, you know, a current status, not only with Arizona revised statutes, but also, you know, as we work through these, we work through the site plans and the different applications we come through, you know, we find errors in the code, things that don't work. So again, this is an opportunity to come in, you know, revise the different sections of it, bring it up to current status, address things that don't work in it, make them better. And then occasionally we also have some Scribner errors, you know, that are identified in the code that, you know, pass through the system and as we notice. And so we come in and try and clean all that up at once, do them all as one amendment or one application for the year so that we, you know, are able to address them all in one shot. And that's really the directive behind this is, you know, to bring ourselves into concurrent with ARS and state legislation that's come down, fix a few things that don't work right, and then address any errors that we might see. So first thing we're going to talk about a couple of different House bills tonight. Now, House Bill 2547 was actually passed a few years ago, and it is directed at City Council and states that with, you know, with certain types of applications coming through, we have to provide a housing impact study. And that housing impact study really is a general estimate of the probable impact, the average cost to construct, description of any data reference materials in which the proposed zoning or ordinance text amendment applies, and less costly alternatives. Now, in the past, when I've brought text amendments before y'all, we would present that text amendment without the housing impact statement because it's clear that it needs to go to council that way. So as I was putting this presentation together, you know, the first thought I had was, why am I separating it? You know, why shouldn't Planning and Zoning Commission see exactly what it is I'm sending to up to council with the housing statement? So having thought about that, I decided to go ahead and include that in this. And I just wanted to address it quickly because in the other text amendments I sent to the P&Z board in the past have not had the housing statement in it. You know, so that's why you're seeing that in this. That's why I created that summary that went through all the different amendments that we have in here, and I included the impact summary with that. So I just wanted to address for a moment why that's in there and why you haven't seen it before. As I said, there's another House bill that we're going to talk about. Well, we might as well talk about it right now because it's starting to get into no, I'm going to hold up on that for just a moment. So what I tried to do when putting this together, instead of having the 21 different and just go right down the row, what I thought I would break it into is text revisions and Scribner errors. Then we would also look at new text coming in based on the House bills, and then any other changes that we had made to this. So let's start with the recreation and tot lot design requirements. This is also you're going to see this again in section 18. But essentially, all the tot lot requirements with respect to shade were all housed in our subdivision regulations. Well, the reality of it is we now have multifamily developments coming in that have these playgrounds associated with them. We also have some commercial development possibilities that might be daycare facilities, you know, with outdoor recreation for school kids. And then we also have it, you know, the subdivision regulations that govern house open space development moving forward. So the issue with this was, with it housed in section 17 in our subdivision regs, if you were any one of the other developments, there were no requirements. And so we were running into walls and battles with different developments coming in. You know, and we would impose these requirements, and the thought process and the response back to us, well, it doesn't say that in your ordinance anywhere. So we're taking it out of section 17, moving it to section 18, and we'll talk about that here in a couple of slides. so that we get an overall effect for it. So it's now applicable in a housing development, it's applicable in a multifamily setting, and it's also applicable in a commercial setting if that type of development is what's coming through. With respect to the mixed-use heritage overlay, as you know, we have self-approved plans. All right, those self-approved plans were designed specifically for the Heritage District. When we went through that, we developed those, we brought them to council, we brought them to Planning and Zoning Commission, and in those requirements, we had that it meet the required City of Maricopa parking standards, which requires 2 covered parking spots for every house. You know, for every dwelling unit, minimum 2 covered parking spots. Well, as you may recall, we've already kind of deviated from that with some other developments in the city, more specifically Anderson Farms, where we have homes that are being built without garages. So when we took a look at that, and in the Heritage District, you know, those homes were designed without garages. So to have that requirement then, if somebody came in and wanted to actually build one of those, you know, previously approved plans, they would have to go get an engineer and design a garage, and it defeated the whole purpose of why we created those plans anyway. Now, the one thing I would say is that without specifics to a planned area development or in the mixed-use heritage district, that requirement doesn't apply anywhere else in the city. So it's derived just for those pre-approved homes that we had previously approved. The screening section, we added just a couple of, we wanted to codify the downspouts in the SES cabinets. Now we're going to have a set of design guidelines for non-residential and commercial coming to y'all probably in the next 60, 90 days, somewhere in there. We're trying to finish it up now. You know, we're asking folks to internalize those. We have been asking folks to internalize. Commissioner Klob, you can testify that we are asking, you know, future development. But again, we didn't have it codified anywhere. We don't have the design guidelines yet, and we didn't have it in our code, so we added it to the screening sections, now requiring developments coming in to have to internalize those downspouts and the SEC cabinets. They can no longer have those sticking on the back of the building. They'll have to build a cabinet around it or internalize it to the building. If you think about it and you consider it from the day you start to design the building, it's not a big deal. And then group homes. There are specific requirements with respect to 7 to 10 type homes and 1 to 6. The 7 to 10 residents have to meet a separation requirement. In the code, and you can see by the proposed draft that we said, it was not crystal clear in there that what it was. It lumped them both together, made it sound like both require the same separation, and we got a lot of questions and concerns on that, so we decided just to clean that up a little bit. All right, list of terms and definitions. We added the single room occupant, and we also added the food court to the list of terms and definitions. Temporary uses, clarify seasonal sales, Christmas trees, fireworks, pumpkin patch, as a temporary use and increases allowable signage for the events. Just kind of make a little note of that because we're going to come back to that in just a second because I have some additional information for you. Section 18140, the neighborhood meeting notification, rectifies a typographical error in 18140-050F2. One of the questions that came up earlier, and essentially what we're doing is we're removing development review permit signage from the public hearing section of that. I want to make it crystal clear that in the development review process or permit section of the code, it still requires an informational meeting like we just did for the 2, and it still requires that the site be posted. The inaccuracy in the public hearing notification portion of it was it listed the DRP as a public hearing notification, and it's not. So nothing changes in that. It's still the same requirements, still the same signage. We just pulled it out of the public hearing portion of that because it was not applicable. So let's talk, I want to talk about temporary uses for just a moment. I said when I read the summary to you, I said we clarified that the seasonal sales for Christmas trees, fireworks, and things like that required a temporary use permit. And we increased the signage for them. We looked at that. However, once I had sent this out to y'all, I realized I'd never included the text clarifying that it needed the temporary use permit. So we've made those revisions. The recommendation that we're going to ask you to consider this evening will recognize this text in here. So we just cleared it up a little bit. As you can see, it states there, and here's where the confusion was, an approved administrative use permit is required. And that's right under the temporary and seasonal outdoor sales, so it became confusing. And we would come in and request the TUP, and they'd say, well, wait a second, it says administrative permit. And the difference here is Lowe's, Home Depot, Ace Hardware is the one that comes to mind. They will do occasional seasonal sales. For example, Ace Hardware does the NASCAR race, where they bring a car down, they park it out front, they have a guy, making hot dogs. That's what this temporary and seasonal outdoor sales was intended for. It's not intended for the guy that's coming in and spending 6 weeks setting up a big tent, selling fireworks or Christmas trees, or where they're having a tremendous impact on the circulation around and where businesses need to be notified. The biggest difference between the two is now that Christmas tree guy coming in or that fireworks guy coming in has to notify businesses around him that they're going to be there. Prior to, they would just come in, it would be a zoning permit, we wouldn't notify anyone, and that's not what the intent of the code was. We just put an extra sentence in there that made it a little cloudy. So we cleared that up. Under the temporary, it gets through the general requirements of the outdoor sales, except for the seasonal sales. Temporary those are part of an existing business. So again, it's the Ace Hardware that's bringing the car down, for a Saturday, Sunday event over a weekend. And we made it crystal clear in there. Approval of a zoning permit by the City of Maricopa is required prior to commencement of the proposed event. So again, it just strengthened that language. And this is for the seasonal sales, the annual sale of Christmas trees, fireworks, pumpkins, and similar items. Again, it was never meant to be part of that other section. So we cleared that out. We also looked at it and thought, under the temporary sign permit requirements, they got one banner, they got one A-frame sign, and they got one feather flag. That banner was 32 square foot, which is essentially an 8x4. 8x6, I'm sorry. No, 8x4. Having a little trouble with the math right now. So in looking at and taking into account the feedback we've gotten from, those different vendors that are putting that up, they all said the same thing, that, that's just not enough signage. So we went and looked at the other cities, and we agreed that in other cities, if you're in Tempe, Chandler, Gilbert, you got about twice what we were offering. So we took a look at that, and we said, okay, fine, we can go to a maximum of 2 banners. We can increase it to 40 square foot a banner. They can hang one on the front of their tent, and they can also hang one that's facing an arterial road. And we thought that was not only adequate but appropriate based on what the other cities are doing. So again, I apologize for leaving that front section out of the exhibit that I sent y'all, but again, when we get down to the recommendation this evening, we're going to want to include this in that recommendation. Compliance with ARS. Now,
Hey, Rick, to the chair, are we going to ask questions at the end of this, or
Yes.
should we
Yes.
do it as we go? What do you prefer?
You know what, let's just get through this. I've got bookmarked portions of this so I can get back to it and figure it, and if we need to go back to a slide, we will.
Cool, thanks.
So we talked about House Bill 2547. Well, there's another House bill that's very close to it, and that's House Bill 2447. And House Bill 2447 essentially removes specific powers from Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. More specifically to final plats and preliminary plats. Now this is, Nick can explain this, much more thorough and precise than I can, but essentially state legislation coming down that's requiring us to amend our code to be able to administratively approve final plats and preliminary plats. And that's what section 1720, 50, 60, section 1820, and 18135 020 are essentially doing. And that takes that final plat approval in and essentially places it with the Development Services Department Director. Future extensions of those preliminary plats, again, Development Services Director. Preliminary plats will be staff approved, essentially provides the zoning administrator the authority to approve the preliminary plats, extend any future plats, and also revises the hearing officer and replaces them with the, I lost the word, in the event of a protest, pardon me? Appeal, thank you very much. So the requirements that you see here and the changes that we've made here essentially are complying with the House Bill 2447. Development, the hearing officer and the zoning administrator. So that's just the rest of that coming through there. New text. Section 1840, commercial districts. There's a big art push throughout the city. We're trying to beautify the area, and I think we're making progress with that. And this provision requires commercial development with a minimum of square footage of 50,000 square foot to incorporate pedestrian-oriented forms of art. First question, I typically get asked is, okay, what does that mean? Don't know yet. Haven't seen it yet. When we get to the site plan design stage and we get to the pre-application meetings, we'll start to have those discussions. It could be some form of sculpture out front. It could be a mural on the side of a building. Art takes many different shapes. So we will have to essentially review that and evaluate that as we move forward. But anything, so the Lowe's, the Home Depots, those guys coming in would have to have some kind of art component associated with their development. Mixed-use heritage overlay district, section 1875. This adds food courts to table 1875-020 in the mixed-use heritage district as a permitted use in the overlay. This is specific to the mixed-use heritage district. This provision comes to us based on feedback from local city owners that have reached out to council, and staff was directed to create a set of standards for a food truck court. There's a great one over in Casa Grande. There's one up in Prescott, right down from Town Square. Austin, Texas, Tucson, San Diego, Maui, Hawaii. I mean, they're very common. I don't know if y'all were out at Stagecoach Days this weekend, but I'm telling you, the food from the food trucks was outstanding. It was really good. So that's where the direction from that comes. As we talked about the tot lot design requirements in the subdivision regs, we've now located that in section 1890 of the landscape ordinance. And essentially what we did refine it a little bit, but we took that whole section, moved it out, and are housing it here in the landscape section. Section 18-12300 are the actual development standards for the food courts. And that establishes those development standards for which they can now create that food court environment. And then, once again, the list of terms and definitions, we added the single room occupant and the food court to the list of terms and definitions. So the proposed text amendments are in conformance with the following goals and objectives outlined in the general plan. I'm not going to read these to y'all, but there are several sections that it is appropriate and applicable. With respect to notification, we've had these out on our website really since before the September 8th, but that was kind of the official date that I got them all in there. It was mid-August when we actually put the first round of these out there. We did run an ad in the newspaper October 9th in the Casa Grande Dispatch, and I would just point out that I've had no public comment received from any of the city postings or the newspaper ad once we ran that. So with that being said, we are recommending that the commission approve the text 2501 tonight, the miscellaneous amendments to Chapter 17 and Chapter 18 as outlined in Exhibit B and Exhibit D of the staff report dated October 27th, and with the amended section for the temporary uses. So, Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And we can go back in slides however y'all want to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Commissioner Klob. Okay. Commissioner Robertson.
Somehow I felt like I just set up. Thank you, Rick, for the presentation. Very comprehensive information. House Bill 2447. Does it explicitly require the removal of authority of this commission, of this process?
Chairman, Commissioner Robertson, I believe it does, but I'm going to defer to Nick because he can give you probably a much more technical answer than I would.
Do you understand the question?
I do, Commissioner Robertson, Chair Singleton, Commissioner Robertson. Technically, what it does is it requires cities to adopt an ordinance that requires administrative approval without a public hearing. So we cannot say, well, we're going to do an administrative approval, but we're going to say you have to have a public hearing for a pre-plat, a final plat, a land division, a lot tie. It really does bring it all in-house.
From House Bill 2447, 9-500-49, notwithstanding other law or legislative body, the city or town shall by ordinance do the following. Authorize administrative personnel to review and approve the plans, development plans, land division, lot line adjustments, lot size, preliminary plats, final plats, and plat amendments without a public hearing. What it doesn't say is remove your Planning and Zoning Commission from the process. What I hear is we're being removed from the process.
Okay, Commissioner Robertson, I guess my question would be, the state is saying, staff, these certain, you adopted these standards, site-specific standards, subdivision standards. If your applicant has hit those standards, why are you making them apply again, go back before a public body where it seems that they are not, or they're possible, it's possible to get denied or condition something else? And that's what the state's saying no. The state is saying you adopt the standards through a zoning change, a subdivision change. Once you have those standards set, your staff is then tasked with approval. So you're still in the process. The process is now on the front end, adopting text amendments, adopting, Rick mentioned design standards that are going to come back before P&Z. That's now where the process is for this commission, is height restrictions, setbacks, tot lot requirements on the front end so that staff knows this has to be in this subdivision or in this commercial zone or whatever the standard is. Staff can then approve it.
Okay, I don't read it that way, because there's no mention in any of 2447 that eliminates the Planning and Zoning Commission or explicitly requires. So I guess I'm asking, will there still be a public element involved where the public can come here and hear the sausage being made, see the renderings, make comment, even if we don't vote on it like we do DRP.
Right.
2 years ago, we had DRP removed from our venue of authority for up or down vote. That was removed. I see that same thing happening here. I cannot support this if we remove the public element. I know they can publicly send in a letter, they can publicly call you and make their comments, but it does remove the element of public influence in a public setting. So will that remain, or will that be removed as a result of approval of this text amendment?
This is, Commissioner Robertson, this is after the property has already been granted its by right, whatever it can be. If it's a subdivision, if it's a commercial subdivision, the up or down vote would then be at the land use. Whether it's a PAD for this massive master plan community that's going to include commercial, it's going to include residential, that's the up or down vote. This is saying after you've already, had the rezoning where they came in and gave you some, the conceptual site plan, the traffic analysis of how this, master plan community is going to fit, that's your vote. Once you've already had that vote, when they go to apply for a plat, based on what they've submitted to you, that's going in-house, because those are then all technical standards that you've already adopted.
Thank you.
So,
Chairman, if I could just add to that, and this goes back to what Nick was saying about managing the document and the tools that we work with and ways to still achieve the same. So, for example, technically in our ordinance right now, there's not a notification process for preliminary plats and final plats. So as an example, and certainly, y'all have the ability to direct us in that manner, maybe we need to go back and take a look at the notification process for those two applications. Maybe there are other ways we can get the word out to the community that this is happening. Those are the types of improvements we can make to the tools that we have to work with and the requirements that we have for the applicant coming in that has a more robust notification process. I think that's a legitimate, question. That's a legitimate directive. What is it? I mean, because you're right, it is coming out of the public realm. So how do we keep it in there? Those are the avenues at which, and I'll be honest with you, we're in the middle of the general plan update. As soon as we get done with that, we're going after the ordinance. And it's probably going to be a rewrite on that. We're already setting aside funds to do that. So there are other ways we can accomplish that, Commissioner, with a robust notification process, that goes, state says, hey, there's the minimum 600-foot radius, and you got to send out a notice. We can go above and beyond that if if it, if letting the public, getting the word out to the public, those that are impacted by it, that's how we, sir, that's how we get around that. And that's probably more effective than just coming here.
I actually think we do a good job getting the word out, but if there's no place for them to come to speak, if it's not on the agenda and it's done behind an administrative office door, we have removed an element of public transparency. We have further damaged the trust of the community in government. And transparency and openness is of utmost importance. Right. So I'll ask maybe council, when it comes up for a motion, is it appropriate that a motion could be made that approves the text amendment but eliminates this element of it for further discussion and consideration? Is that an appropriate motion when the time comes?
It's an appropriate motion. What I would say is this statute requires, it's effective December 31st of 2025. So we are up against the clock to get this reviewed, recommended by this body, and then to council to be then effective 30 days after an adoption.
I understand the time frame. Honestly, that's not our problem up here, that the time frame is crunched, almost feels deliberate. I'm being very honest and emotional. It almost feels deliberate, and it almost feels like this inundation of changes that could have been incremental all year long as they arose wind up in front of us with a very short window. I cannot support this text amendment change.
So, if I may, just kind of a clarifying question / definition between a preliminary plat and a final plat, because I wanted to use an example of, let's take Terribles off of Porter and Bolin. That got a lot of pushback from residents, from us, and they took that and they adjusted accordingly. Just to clarify, that process is not being taken away.
This text amendment does not modify the current DRP process that's in place.
Okay.
This is dealing solely with preliminary plats and final plats. Properties that are entitled to be a subdivision.
Got it. I'll let other commissioners go before I keep going. Commissioner Yoakum.
I just have two things, and out of curiosity more than anything else. The group home, the 7 to 10 residents, this is 18120-240. They're spaced 1,200 feet, minimum 1,200 feet apart. And I'm wondering what is the philosophy behind that 1,200 feet? I mean, why 1,200 feet? Why not 1,400 or 900?
It's a
state thing,
Chairman,
isn't it?
commissioners, it's a state requirement. I do
That's-
not know
That's my answer then. Thank you. Okay. The food court. Have we ever had an applicant looking for a food court in their application?
Chairman, Commissioner Yoakum, really good question. These standards in this direction really is, it's a byproduct of the folks that have come in. We've had over the years, the 4.5 years I've been here, we've had numerous food court folks come in and try and do this. But the way the ordinance and the code is written right now, there are a list of significant improvements, that are non-negotiable, that have to be performed for anybody coming in on one of those 2 or 3 acre parcels. It essentially was pricing everybody out of it. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to be spent between engineering and actual construction costs, probably more. In the 4.5 years I've been here, I think we've had 4 different pre-application meetings with folks trying to do this. And as soon as we get to what it's going to cost to do it to meet minimal city requirements, kills it.
So
It's done.
this was necessitated by being able to accommodate applicants under a less strict guideline.
Well, yes, sir, and, you know, the folks that were trying to do these, you know, reached out to, you know, council members and had conversations with them. You know, so council came back, leadership gave us a directive, take a look at what other folks are doing. You know, the first biggie that you come across is, you know, in these other cities that we've looked at, the surface requirements are probably the biggest one right off the bat. Where everybody else is allowing a dust-proof surface, technically we require paving. You know, whether it be concrete or asphalt, you know, that just exponentially drives the cost of the development up and eliminated it. Either the property owners, you know, he's not willing to make that investment, you know, and certainly the folks that wanted to operate the food trucks, they don't, you know, it just, those kind of construction costs, which most of them were on site, and it, you know, if there were any off-site requirements, then it really accelerated. So we've come up with a set of standards that meets minimum development standard, it meets PM10 standards, it meets dust control standards, it still meets safety, they still have to have an ADA parking space, you know, so it doesn't eliminate that, but what it does is minimize the impact of significant improvements on the site.
Well, Rick, looking at the requirements as written, I think it's streamlined very well, and it's limited and to the point. Thank you. That's all I have, Rick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Klob.
Thank you. Through the chair. I'll start with the big one, and then we'll work backwards to the easy ones. I share Commissioner Robertson's challenge with removing this from the purview of P&Z. And as someone who has the rare occasion that we have to be on both sides of this equation on numerous times over the years, we can create all the standards and guidelines and everything that we want. We don't live in a black and white world. And projects evolve. Projects, look at the two sites we had tonight. You know, I'll go back and even talk about the Buffalo Wild Wings, that thing with the little funky triangle and the parking, and
Right.
but it's the only way to get all the parking that we need in, and it just, that doesn't fit in a nice fancy little box with a little red ribbon on top. It needs to evolve. It needs finesse. It needs, you know, to work through different aspects. And that's where, because I've been on projects
Right.
that we've brought in, what we brought into P&Z and council is great, and it looks great, and it's eyewash, and it's pretty, and it's fancy, and it was in the papers, and it was on the news, and it was on whatever, and it looks awesome. And then what actually gets approved after we go through all the iterations and bring costs in, and we get the engineers involved, and what it evolved to can be completely different. And that's where I think that, and I get that we're being led down this path by legislatively, and I get that and understand it completely. But removing the transparency, removing the ability to have, you know, second, third looks at some of these projects that, you know, could be, as the term I used earlier, the problem childs, to put that back inside just the purview of, you know, a staff decision, you know, what happens we have a situation that's got to get a plat approved, and I'm going to pick on you, Rick, just because you're standing here.
Go right ahead.
You're off on a dive trip, and it's got to get approved, and, you know, an underling, you know, we'll say Derek signs off, but he doesn't know all the ins and outs of it, and it gets signed off and gets approved, and you come back from your trip, and it's like, oh, crap, what, you know, this didn't get changed. And I think that the extra sets of eyes, I've had it on my projects, where having those extra eyes look at it and say, yeah, these are some of the challenges that I see it. I didn't see it that way, but now I do. And I've gone back and redesigned to meet some of that. And sometimes it is an evolutionary process.
Right.
So I'm really reluctant on pulling more. We've already had so much, pulled legislatively from the purview of P&Z and even council. This is just one more erosion of that, and we have more coming. I have no doubt. Some of the players that didn't get what they wanted last year are coming back around, I'm sure, in January.
Just the beginning.
It's just the beginning. And the developers, for my clients professionally, I see, because it is a process and it is a time-consuming process. And when I have to go through a rezoning and a replat and things like that on a design project, I tell my clients, figure a year, sometimes 2 years, or some of our valley cities, sometimes 3 or 4, to go through all those processes. So streamlining that, I think, is good, but I think that there's ways to still meet that common balance.
Yeah, Chairman, Commissioner Klob, I understand. I understand 100% where you're coming from, and we're having this conversation, and Commissioner Robertson, I agree with you. But the one thing that all of, each of us has said, and Nick has talked about it, this is a state legislative mandate. We don't have the ability to decide, well, we don't like it in this form, we're going to make something else. We don't have that ability. We can vote against it tonight, but the reality of it is the state is requiring us to do this. They've given us a date. We have to do this. All right? I implore, there are other ways around this, and it's through the ordinance and the requirements and the tools that we have. If we're worried about the transparency and the eliminating the general public from this, then we have to go back and figure out a way to include the general public. They can still appeal a preliminary plat bill. It goes to the hearing officer. If it's not settled there, it goes to the city council. So there are processes in place. They've just never been used before. So we need to take a look at how are we letting the public know. For example, I'll just give you another example. We know who all the HOAs are around the city. But you know what? We don't notify them. There's an avenue to get to even more people. But we need to go back and now we need to go back and strengthen that zoning ordinance to help support those things, because it's not coming to this environment anymore. We don't have the ability to say, no, we're not going to approve this. We have to do this. It's state mandated. It's not a choice. So work with me to, I came before you 2 weeks ago and gave you an update on some information that y'all asked. Send me back again. Let's make it better. Let's address how we can still maintain the transparency of this, how we can get out to even more of our residents, informing them of these natures, and also give them the ability to protest it if they don't like it. The other aspect of this is zoning becomes so much more important. Those PADs coming through here, those what are establishing the criteria set forth in how we're going to review this moving forward. If it's in the PAD, we don't have the ability to say, hey, you know what? You don't have to do that. They have to come back before you again with an amendment to it to be able to do that. So it places a greater emphasis on the overall process, the entitlement of it. As we're going through, it changes the questions that we ask at a rezoning or a planned area development. I believe there are ways that we can work together to still accomplish what y'all are talking about here tonight. But again, all it takes is us willing to work together. Give me the direction. I'll go out and take a look at what the other cities are doing it and how they're, because they're all doing it. We're not the only one. Most of them have already done it. Some are running these through like we're doing right now. So, the reality of it is we need to think outside the box, and how we maintain this public trust, this transparency, and we notify as many folks as we can. But what we don't have the ability to do is say, well, we'll approve this all, but without this. We're moving forward. It's state mandated. So again, I go back to, I agree with you, I understand where you're coming, I feel the same way. I'm not thrilled about it, but it is a requirement, and there are ways to work through this and accomplish the same task, just going through a different route to do it.
And I would agree with that, and I think that there's ways that we can strengthen our ordinance to fine-tune that. And I think, you know, as a commission and, you know, your team, and we'll even let legal get in every once in a while, on how we can, you know, bring some of that back and keep that transparent.
Yeah,
transparency, 'cause I
absolutely,
think-
and I'm here to work with y'all on that. You know, there are cities in the valley that were on this plan long before the state mandated it. You know, there are numerous cities out there that preliminary plats don't go to P&Zs. You know, but I think, you know, for those that, you know, there's nothing wrong with taking a look at what their notification and that process is and how it looks and how it works. I think that's very valid.
Yeah, and I think, I look at cities like Chandler, that's
Right.
down to 5% open space to develop. They can do a lot of this internally, it's not a big deal.
Right.
Whereas a community like ours, that we have lots of open space, we have lots of land available, we have lots of growth potential, it puts a different burden on us than some of these other cities. And the other challenge is, it puts a burden on your staff.
Absolutely.
Who's already, you know, tight as it is. So it's just one more thing that,
Right.
and now you guys become the bad guys, but,
Right.
you know, developers' eyes yard are.
Well, and we touched on this a little bit, Chairman, Commissioners. This is just the first. You know, we've seen, and Nick could probably speak to this a little clearer than I could, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, there are other requirements coming down that, you know, are going to be mandated that, you know, we're not going to be happy about. You know, so we're going to have to learn to, you know, how do we deal with this? It's coming. We don't have a choice. You know, so, you know, we have to get our heads together and think about this. We have to have study sessions. You know, we got to come up with some, you know, good requirements in our ordinance that still protect the public and serve the public. But that's how we're going to get around this. You know, we're not going to be able to say no.
No.
You know, so we're going to have to really work together and put our collective, you know, thoughts together and come up with some ways to continue to achieve what makes us, you know, so great in what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge coming. Myself and my staff are up to it. You know, I enjoyed going out and looking at the other cities and bringing that information back to y'all. We're going to do more of that. But that's the task before us now, because these changes are coming and we don't have a choice.
Yeah. Couple other little comments. I got these are
Commissioner
easy
Club,
ones.
before you go,
Yes.
Commissioner Robertson had a question along the same vein as yours.
Go ahead.
Approval of this text amendment pretty much codifies it after it goes through council
Yeah,
at the
the
next level.
recommendation, this is a recommending body to council, and then 30 days after
And
that.
then once council passes it, it's codified.
Correct.
Okay. I'm still going to disagree with the premise that removing public participation at any level is a requirement of 2447. I don't see it in there. The only language is in there is you don't have to have a public hearing. It explicitly says that. You say we can work together, Rick. Well, that's not going to happen tonight, but yet we have to vote tonight.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Club.
All right. We'll start from the very beginning. The heritage parking, two spaces, the only concern I have with that is we have lots of weird lot sizes in the Heritage District. We have some very narrow lots. I'm working on a project now in there that's a 50-foot wide lot, 50 by 300. It's kind of strange. Platted in 1906, I think it was, kind of crazy. Anyway, but we also have some pretty good-sized lots in there.
We do.
And my concern, just because I've been on the other side, is we get a developer in and they're on a 10,000 square foot lot that can easily accommodate 2 cars and probably should. Hey, it's cheaper. I can do 1. Would it be advantageous at all to set a size or like a lot size or a building size? If you're up to so many square feet, you only need one space. Greater than that, you need 2 spaces.
Just making a quick note here, sir. Yeah, I think that's a very good point. We did not discuss that in the, in the deliberations moving through this. Let me take it back to them, and see what the thought, and I'll get with Rudy tomorrow. We were typically, this was more specifically aimed at the pre-approved home developments, which typically, we're not going to see that on the 10,000 square foot lot. We're seeing that on the, on the smaller lot. So,
But we could, though.
we could, yeah, absolutely, no question about it. Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. Let me take it back and probably can get some kind of thought back on that, or and I can share the results with you via email, or I'll give you a call. But yeah, I think it's a valid question.
On the temporary sign for the events, pumpkin patch, whatever, I didn't notice it, but I didn't dig deep into it. Is there anything in there as it relates to lighting?
I'm sorry, sir?
Lighting.
Chairman, Commissioner Klob, at this point, we don't have any requirements in there except what would be our normal nuisance requirements. Can't have light flashing, directed out on arterials. It is a temporary use. There are some, if there are safety concerns or there are trip hazards, through the temporary use, we can always come in and require them to add additional lighting if we thought it was an issue.
I know in our regular sign code, we're very specific on sign lighting and things
Yes.
like that. And so we don't have that here, but I'm sure that they're going to want some level of lighting, especially Christmas time, our days are shorter.
Right.
And so I just think it might be something that we may want to at least investigate to codify, so it doesn't get abused. We don't want the space station to comment that, oh, Maricopa's selling Christmas trees.
Yeah, Chairman, Commissioners, currently there are no requirements for that. With this specific use, they get the banners, the A-frame sign, and the feather, and that's the limits of the signage that's allowed. If they tried to illuminate any of that signage, then from a code standpoint, we would have an issue with that. And that is a totally separate than, some illuminations underneath the tent that, for example, the emergency exit has to be illuminated. So that's a battery-operated device that they hang above. The emergency exit. And then obviously if there, like I said, if there are any trip hazards or there are any safety concerns, then building chief or the fire chief, during their inspections can come in and require additional lighting.
Okay. 2 quick ones. Food truck thing, I think it's great. I actually was contacted initially for one of the sites to do across from, we're on Honeycutt, across from where in Maricopa is. And just trying to get everything to work out feasibly, financially, just didn't make sense. So,
With respect to that,
the right direction.
Chairman, Commissioners, Danya Castillo, our project manager, is sitting right behind me. She's the one that's not Derek.
yeah.
Is he still standing? Yeah, she's really
The one without the beard.
the one without, there you go. She's really championed this cause. She's the one that did all the research on it, put this thing together. It's been her baby from the beginning, and she's done an outstanding job with it. She's really championed it and gone out. She's talked to the potential food court folks, and she's done a great job, and just kudos to her.
Well, and a lot of our trucks go down to Casa Collective down in Casa Grande, and let's keep them here and keep the sales tax here. So, the last one is I know it's probably coming, I would imagine. Are we going to be making any more updates regarding the ADU and the new laws that also just came into play?
Chairman, Commissioners, I'm going to defer to Nick on that one.
Timing-wise, I can't speak to that, but yeah, there will be likely additional changes coming down the pipeline.
Because that too has the same end-of-year deadline, otherwise it just codifies itself.
Yeah. But
I thought there was a population.
there's a population of
No, the new one, they dropped the
75.
population. It's all jurisdictions, what was approved in September, it now covers cities and counties, all jurisdictions.
And was there an emergency clause to get it to the end of the year? Because usually it would be sin dio, but
I believe it did, but I can't sit here and say 100%.
okay. I can look at that and follow up with a email to the commission about deadlines.
I know in 2 weeks we're seeing it at the county, so.
And there are numerous cities over, the 70,000 population that have already enacted it. I don't know the exact timing on it, and we'll take a look at what that bill that states, but it will be coming at some point.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the previous one where there was a resident threshold, I think codified it at if we didn't do something by the end of the year, but yeah, I'm not sure if because it got updated in September to remove that, if it got pushed
The
back.
previous one, if I remember correctly, it was, you had a population of 75,000 based on the last census.
Yes.
So we were still under it in the last census, even though we're over it now. We probably wouldn't be hit with it, until the next major census.
Right.
In 2030. But this new one,
Removed it.
I think, pulled a lot of those exemptions out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on the previous requirements that you were talking about. I'm not aware of the new one.
I pulled up what's currently there. It still has a 75,000 population restriction.
Okay.
I'll double check though to see
Okay.
if that's changed, but if it's the same one I'm thinking about, they had moved the population requirement from earlier in the statute to a lower section because it made it look like only subsection A applied to the population requirement when it's the entirety of the statute. But I'll double check.
Okay.
Cool. Commissioner Robertson.
Don't get mad at me, I'm going to digress a little bit. When did 2447 go into effect?
Is the question when was it adopted or when does it go into effect?
When does it go in, when was, both, thank you.
I'd have to get the specific date when it was passed and signed by the governor, but it is effective December 31st, 2025.
December 31st.
March
And
31st, 2025. That's when it was signed by the governor.
I will defer to the chair on that date. That sounds right.
And what is the penalty for noncompliance?
Speaking on,
Past experience?
I'd have to look at it more, but it is unlikely that the city would be able to enforce its code.
Thank you.
All right.
And
Now,
the other thing I'll add to that, I think it actually might have been signed off by the governor, but I don't think it actually went into, I'm going to, don't know the actual terminology here. Was it September 19th when all the laws?
That was the general effective date this year, but this one had a specific provision making it the end of the year.
Okay.
So that was, that's general effectiveness is 70-something days after the close of the session. But this one had a specific date.
yeah. Sorry, I meant it was like approved by the governor March 31st. I'm just looking at it on my phone, so that's why I was like, okay. All right. Now my questions. Sometimes. No. Now we're going to be here an extra hour because he said that. Food courts. I like the idea. I like the premise. I know there's been a couple of residents that have come forward during council meetings and been like, this is my idea that I want. I think it was actually the location that you were discussing. And I know it's to help get things off the ground, right? It's to help not have an astronomical $100,000 plus price tag. My one thing that raised an eyebrow was the required permanent power pedestals for each vendor stall is required. One, how are we going to know how many vendors will show up, right? I feel like saying each vendor stall needs to have a required, permanent power pedestal. While that'd be ideal and great, and I know, and we were discussing earlier, it's to reduce noise by having generators for every, food truck, but that was one thing that, kind of caught my eye of, if we're trying to reduce the price tag so that these can be created, this is an additional cost that they have to bring, electrical for every single potential vendor that is going to be there, right? Yeah, that's my one thing with food courts, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with the wording of food courts, if it's really food trucks, because I like some people, I think of food courts at an airport or a mall or something like that. And so that was the other thing when I read food courts. I'm like, why are we mandating this inside of a mall? We don't have a mall to, have a food court. But just.
Chairman, Commissioners, two things. One, with the number of stalls and the required pedestals, there's a couple of motivating factors here, that we're certainly trying to minimize nuisance intrusion, with sound. So if you're running off a pedestal, you're not running generators or things of that nature. The other thing it does is it really kind of caps the number of trucks you can have in a location. So it eliminates the guy that, the overcrowding, the pulling up, not meeting the separation requirements, because there are some other, public safety requirements from a fire standpoint that, that these trucks have to meet. So I think that was the intention behind that, those requirements. But what I can do, Chairman, I think it's a valid question. What I can do is Danya and I can have a chat with the chief building official tomorrow and see if maybe there is a better way to do that, accomplish it. The one thing I would say is that we looked around at the different cities, and it was a requirement that we found consistent with other cities. More specifically, the one I'm most familiar with is the one up in Prescott. And that way they cap it. Once those spots are filled up and those pedestals are taken, more trucks can't come in. So I think I'll raise the question tomorrow. Again, be happy to get back to you tomorrow with an email response. Is there anything else we want to add on that, Danya? Yeah, so, yeah, let me run it up the flagpole, and be happy to share with you what I can find out about it and if there's more information behind that.
Gotcha. And another question.
Before going to,
yep.
I just want to tag onto that just a little bit. I actually think it's a great option for these trucks to have. You know, then they're not paying for gas to run the generators and the noise and so on. And I think the pedestals really aren't the expense. There's probably $1,500 to run a pedestal, depending on how long the line is and so on. You know, to bring a 30 amp.
You know, certainly compared to paving the parking lot.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the bigger expense is actually, there's going to have to be a power pole set somewhere. That's going to be the bigger expense, and you know, have that central, you know, power distribution point. From there, it just branches out. It's like bringing, you know, power back to your pool.
Yeah. It wasn't necessarily like the pedestals themselves being the cost. It was bringing that electrical there and the power pole and the distribute, like as a whole, just this line item is the thing I could key off of. So that's why it was.
My only other thought on that, because I agree with you. I mean, these costs, especially trying to get something running and helping, you know, talking to some of the people that were trying to do this a year or two ago. I don't know if there's a way to do a phased approach to it.
Or like a percentage of,
you know,
stalls or something.
Almost like a temporary use permit, and then within, you know, 180 days, and you have to meet this criteria, and hopefully over the course of 2 or 3 years, maybe it gets into like the Casa Collective. You know, it's turned into a really nice, thriving, you know,
right.
you know, focal point for the city. But it's not like I got to come up with $100,000 to even open the doors, and these guys, they only want to pay me $50 a night to park the truck. It's hard to recoup your money on that, you know, that way. Maybe there's some options there. So,
Well, again, Chairman, Commissioners, all good feedback. You know, can take it back. We've got a development review team meeting tomorrow morning. We can run this up the flagpole and see what we can come up with. I have no issue writing up a summation of that and sending it to the 4 of you. It may be, yes, we're going to recommend this change. It may be we're going to leave it as is. I just don't know the answer to that yet.
sure.
Commissioner Robertson.
I like hearing that, but I don't understand the mechanics of it. If we have to vote tonight on the language that's presented before us, and then you go back to your meetings and you come up with some changes, how do the mechanics of that work? You change it between us and City Council, and they see the final version?
Chairman, members of the commission, that's exactly right, sir. Now, and Nick, I would defer to Nick on this, but you know, we can go back and make some minor changes to this because in general, it's conceptually what we're voting on here tonight. You know, obviously, if it were a major change to it or some kind of significant revision to it, then we wouldn't be able to do that. We would need to bring that back to you, you know, and say, hey, we made some wholesale changes. That's why, you know, I'll get this information. If we're going to make any subtle changes in that, you know, and I would consider if we just change the language a little bit on the pedestal requirement, you know, that may not be applicable in every location. You know, for example, if they go to the Pinal County Courthouse, where it's all paved and all, you're not going to be able to put, you know, Pinal County might be open to that on a Sunday or a Friday. I'm just giving that as an example. So let me go back, run it back up the flagpole, talk about it tomorrow, and if we're going to make some subtle revisions to that, then I will communicate with all of y'all via email, letting you know what we would do. But anything that were significant or major changes to it, then that would need to come back before you, sir.
Okay. For me, you've got 2 things on your list to go talk about. One is keeping the public transparency open in some portion, and this thing about maybe changing the pedestal requirement. So I see 2 things that you should be talking about internally. And then, should it change between now, tonight, and it reaches council, council will know that there's been some modifications made based on input from the last council, commission meeting.
Yeah. Chairman, members of the commission, when I put that council report together for them, there will be a Planning and Zoning Commission section of that. And it will capture, not word for word, but in general, it'll capture all the conversation that we're having here tonight. So it's going to be a big section for this one. And so they will be fully aware of everything we've discussed here tonight. And if we make any changes to it, it will be in the Planning Zoning Commission section of that staff report.
And Bill, also the parking for the Heritage.
I'm sorry?
Parking for the Heritage District.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's 3.
Now, the real question is, does that get put on council's consent agenda, which does not ever get discussed? But I digress. One more question about food courts. What was the thought process of no overnight parking for vendors? And the reason why I asked that is there's always been, oh, where do I park my food truck? I have, like, CAC thankfully allows people to park their food trucks, but, you know, let's say the owner of a food truck wants to take it there the night before a food truck event. This is saying they can't park there. So what's the thought process on limiting vendors parking their food trucks there overnight?
Chairman, members of the commission, I think that there are a couple of factors in here. You know, one, obviously, there's an aesthetic value to not parking the trucks there. You know, some folks are going to look at it, you know, we want to keep it nice and clean. We don't allow that type of outdoor storage anywhere else in the city. All right? CAC is under they're a different animal. They're a school. You know, there are specific regulations that we can't impose there. The other thing that I think you have to consider is local business. You know, the food truck was meant to, and we authorized it and permitted it on the premise that it's going to move. You know, so if, you know, you get a food truck that stays in one place all the time, you know, what is the impact that's having on your brick and mortar businesses, your restaurants that are already, you know, that weren't allowed to go in that and build in that residential area? They couldn't build their, you know, their commercial restaurant. You know, so there are, you know, unintended consequences of, you know, and consequences to everything that we do. So I think you have to take into consider it's accumulation of all of those. You know, it's the outdoor storage issue. You know, where do you start to draw the line once you cross that line? So we're just eliminating it from day one. You can come in here on a Friday and Saturday night from 6 o'clock to essentially 10 o'clock, serve your meal, drive your truck home, and park it in your backyard. You know, that's what the food truck, you know, court is intended to be. Not a storage for your food truck, you know, and we realize there is a need for this, but, you know, if we allow them to start, you know, accumulating days and days and days, at what point do you become a restaurant, you know, or a stationary? If you don't move, then, you know, what's the impact that has on the brick and mortar guy, you know, that's built his restaurant right down the street, or is you know, renting a suite in a retail center to, you know, serve his customers. And I think, so it's accumulation of all of that, and I think that's, again, would you add anything to that? You know, and then the other thing I would just point out is, again, we looked at a lot of different cities, you know, and that was certainly not a common theme that we found in any of the others.
I'd like to tag on that if I don't mean to step on your
No,
toes.
go ahead.
See, I see it a little differently, Rick.
Okay.
I've been to a couple different food truck parks, Austin,
Yeah.
Portland, San Diego, and these trucks are there.
Yep.
They park there. This is their restaurant. And so I think it's for 2 reasons. You know, one, affordability. And for us locally, here in the city of Maricopa, we're not Casa Grande. We don't have an abundance of commercial space saying, hey, come build out, come TI our space, make it a restaurant. We don't have that here.
Right.
This may help, if having a couple things here. Having a spot where a truck is there day in and day out, they can operate 5 days a week, they're always there. There's some advantages to that. Yep. It also allows them the ability to, so the owner of this, food truck park, it allows them to say, okay, I'm going to rent this to you for a month, for a 6-month lease, for a 1-year lease, whatever. And it's a financial generation for them to reinvest into their park, hopefully. It's also a set area for my truck to be able to sit there, and I could put a park bench there, and I could put a little cover there, and I could maybe beautify it a little bit to draw more customers.
Right.
One of my biggest challenges is, I don't think anybody noticed, but I'm a bigger guy, and I like to eat. My big challenge with Maricopa is, and I love to support small businesses here in our city.
Yes.
Food trucks in our town do a terrible job of advertising where they are, when they're open, what they're serving, whether it be at the CAC, in Fry's, and anywhere else. And I hate driving. I'm hungry. I want a hamburger. I want to go find, and oh, damn, they're not open. Okay, go try the next one. Go try the next one. Go try the next one. And there's a few food trucks. I look at the hot sauce truck that's in front of the ammo place right there on they're there every night. They're pretty much 5-6 days a week. They're in the exact same spot. My wife loves their tacos. She's having a craving. I know they're going to be there. And so I think there's some point of having that ability to, and maybe we don't do it on the whole park. Maybe it's limited to a certain number of spaces or a percentage or something. Maybe there's a happy medium here. I don't know. But I think there's some advantage, and it helps these businesses grow and invest to hopefully then take that and then invest into a future store.
Chairman, Commissioners, excellent observation. Excellent point on there too. I would just point out a couple of things, and I think that, this is our first crack at it. Mm-hmm. The other thing I'd point out is the majority of the Heritage District are residential homes, and not commercial entities. If we're talking about the same food court in Austin, Texas on Barton Springs Boulevard, right there by Zilker Park, you've got commercial all the way around it. The one in Maui, commercial all the way around it. The one up in Prescott.
I was talking about the one on Congress, but yeah, same idea.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's in a commercial business park. Little bit different scenario. I think there's an apprehension with this initial code coming out to allow overnight parking where you've got food trucks parked out there overnight every day next to folks who are living in their homes. So I would fully anticipate, Commissioner Klob, that this food court will organically evolve. That I think we're going to figure out what works here, what doesn't work here, and we're going to come back and we'll make minor amendments to it to make it better and tweak it. Because I think there are some locations possibly in the Heritage District and maybe even throughout the city, that maybe we need to reconsider this. But what we wanted to do was create a situation where they could start doing business, today with minimal improvements, but yet protective measures, baked into the code that, that protect the surrounding residences that are existing. So I would fully anticipate that this thing will evolve over time, and it wouldn't surprise. We know they're popular. We know people want them. And I would see us making changes to this somewhere down the road and probably the not too distant future.
Good.
Yeah, because this is kind of, this code is there to help the people develop a food court of trucks, right? And you mentioned, why couldn't I build my, restaurant in this area. A little different between the two. And to be honest, there's really nothing stopping anybody from parking their car in a parking lot here and leaving it overnight. I see it all the time. But I do agree, like Portland has areas where there are food trucks there constantly. And I know this is under the heritage, section, but like you said, this could evolve to apply across the board, right?
Right.
And we could come back and evolve it. Just, something to consider when you have your meeting tomorrow, because yes, I do agree. It's a pain to know, hey, where are these food trucks going to be? Oh, I don't know. They're not at CAC tonight. They're over by CVS, or they're in the Fry's parking lot. Being able to know for sure that, hey, food truck, XYZ is always at this location, and potentially another revenue generating aspect for the management, I think would be a win-win across the board. Also, it's meant to go, and move around and then go park your food truck in your backyard. HOAs don't allow that, right? And that's what every, subdivision here is. They either are paying CAC or, there for free, or another storage unit. So I don't agree with that comment of, take it home with you afterwards, and because then the HOA's after you. So, and there's storage in the Heritage District that I see food trucks parked there all the time, right across the street from housing. So I don't see this any different than that, other than I can go get a taco from the food truck instead of it just being parked under an awning.
Yeah,
for storage.
I think it's an interesting perspective. I understand 100% where you're coming from. I think the issue that we have right now today, that doesn't meet any of our outdoor storage requirements throughout the city. And there is, this is our first go at it. There are going to be some learning lessons. There's some apprehension that's coming with this. So we're trying to create something that's fair and enforceable.
Sure.
So I think this is a really good start, and I believe that we're going to learn from this. We're going to see how it evolves, and we'll make the changes to this that we need to as we move forward. But I think it's a fair set of standards to start with, and let's see what happens.
Cool. Any other questions, comments, concerns about the text amendments? Okay, so I do have a question on moving forward, since this is an action item. There have been many things proposed, including a notification system of sorts for prelim plats and final plats. Is that something we just have to say in the motion, that there is some sort of notification about that to residents, or how does that?
Mr. Chairman, as I understand from the discussion, everyone gave Rick direction to have his meetings and then follow up after that, and then specifically say if a section changes, he would identify it in the staff report. This is the change. After discussion with P&Z, they had these recommendations. We talked about it with staff. This is now the new language because of that change.
Right.
That's my understanding of it, which didn't need to be in a motion because that was direction given to Rick.
So we never actually directed notification distance or anything like that. We just said there needs to be notification. I think the minimum for us is 600 feet.
Chairman, what I was going to, and I agree with what Nick said. I mean, we didn't specifically get into it, but I think just for clarity, I think Chair should direct staff, to take a look at these other cities and how they're handling the notification requirements as a whole. For all the different applications and what their requirements, how they're doing it, how are they effectively reaching, their citizens. And I'll come back to you in a few weeks, and I'll share exactly what I find. Here's our process. Here's other city processes. Here's how they're going. I think that with respect to preliminary plats and final plats, I think it's a very valid question that, how are we going to let people know? And what is the process, to, protesting a plat moving forward? I can go look at the other cities because I know we're different already. I mean, in the cities I've worked in, I know we had different requirements. So let me bring those to you, and we'll create another text amendment if that's what we need to do, and we'll fix that.
I would add to that, social media.
Yes,
Having.
good point.
And I do want to commend, I know we had some discussions on the sign thing, and I'm not trying to go off topic here, but as we're talking about notifications, the Buffalo Wild Wings sign, it popped up a month or so ago on the site. I live right down the street. I drive by there almost on a daily basis. And I loved having the ability, and this is recorded, so I hope I don't get a ticket, but being able to drive by, and a great big QR code that's about this big, I could hit it with my phone as I drove by, and I was like, oh, cool. Much better than little tiny text, and I think that maybe not for all of our, maybe less technically savvy, residents, but I use QR codes all the time, and I really like that ability. Here's what the other part that I like about it is that QR code then can be this living, breathing document that is, once you have access to that, you can log in, here's my email, here's my whatever, and as things change, as things evolve, as, maybe it gets pushed back and maybe it gets,
Right.
continued to another date, you can just keep updating that, and then the email goes out automatically to people.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that. And, that QR code and that bigger sign came as a result of a text amendment wanting to reach, more people. When I first got here, that was a 24 by 36 inch sign that we use for everything with no QR codes. So, that's what let's continue to work together. Let's identify these, areas that we can improve and we can get better and put staff to work for you. We are here, we need your help. We're here to work with you, and I will go research anything y'all want me to, within reason. But
So I guess one concern that I have, and I don't know if others share it, is what if you come back and go, nah, we're doing the same thing that every other city's doing? Not saying that we are, right? And then that's cool. We're doing everything that other cities are doing, but we want to be better, right? Because once we vote on this is our recommendation to city council, and then if city council approves it, it's kind of set in stone. There's no incentive, I'll say, for staff to come back and be like, oh, let's actually add some additional requirements, for us to, or the developer or whoever, to send out, the notifications. I feel like we're in a weird scenario where we are kind of put in a position due to time constraints, not our fault, to approve this so that city council can approve it with enough time before the deadline, with no guarantee, in a sense, that the notification process is going to be put in place, I guess is.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question. So if let's just say right now, you say, Rick, I want you to go bring back a study in 30, 60 days about what other cities are doing for notification.
Okay.
He comes back and says, here's what we're doing, something consistent with what everyone else is doing, 600 feet, whatever the standard is. You could say, understood, I want 900 feet. Bring back an amendment for 900 feet. The commission can put an agenda item on the next meeting. Well, it probably have to be a little bit delayed because you have to publicize and all that. But
Yep.
You could bring back an amendment to then forward to council.
Perfect. Rick, I would like you to do that.
no, and Chairman, me and my staff, we work for the residents here in the city of Maricopa. You're all residents here in the city of Maricopa, and we are directed by you. I'm the liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So if you're going to direct me to go do that, I'm not going to mail it in. I'm not going to blow smoke. You know, I didn't do that with, we're just not built that way. We're here to make things better. We're here to serve the residents in the city of Maricopa, and that's what we're going to do. So whether we're consistent with everybody else, which I can already tell you we're not, because the state requires a 300-foot radius, we went to 6. Maybe we need to go to 9. Maybe we need to require social media. We've got a Facebook page, and we've got every HOA's address in here. Maybe we need to bake into the notification requirements, that we notify all those. We can do that working through you. That's what we're here to do. That's what we do. So yeah, I'll take your direction. I'll go back and I'll start doing some research on this, and I'll come back to you and we'll make it better. The only thing that counts are results, and if it makes it better for the citizens of Maricopa, then that's what we're going to do. Ultimately, council's going to, vote approve, but we'll send something that's, hard to, it's hard to not support.
Yeah. Could I add onto that directive of, I would kind of like to see what our notification process requirements for kind of each step of the development process, whether that's a prelim plat, final plat, DRP, just so that it's kind of out there.
I would also include general plan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sir, Chairman, I'm going to bring you every application we have and what the requirement
Perfect.
is for it. And I'm going to go look at all the different cities and see what their requirements are for it.
Awesome.
And what methods they're using to notify their residents. Yeah, I know that there are going to be some variables out there, because I've worked in 4 other cities and I know what those, what just those do.
Yep.
So I'll gather that up. I'll make it legible so we can all read it, and let's sit down and talk about it, and figure out what's best for the residents of Maricopa, and we'll move forward with that.
Perfect.
I'd like to add
Yes.
real quick on, since we're kind of on this subject of directing staff. It came up tonight when we were talking about the Buffalo Wild Wings, and I brought it up before. As a design professional, in this day and age, everybody's doing everything in 3D. I don't know of any of your larger firms that are doing the static 2-dimensional stuff, except for when it comes to these, these submissions, front elevation, side elevation, whatever. And that's fine, having those in there. I would like staff to look at what other cities are doing, or maybe even we amend our requirements to require 3-dimensional views. It doesn't have to be fully landscape renderings, but some level of 3-dimensional views that capture, it could just be 2 views. One from the, southwest corner, one from the northeast corner. You pick up all 4 sides of a building with those 2 views, and it really puts the building in perspective of what's really being built. And it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And we're not asking for something that they're not already, they're already creating for their clients. They want it for marketing, for funding, for whatever. I think that would give a much better look and feel for the projects that are coming here, for our residents, the transparency thing again. And I think even from us as on the dais here, just to really get a big picture of what this building's gonna look like. And I think that might even, solve some of the challenges that some of these projects have had.
Yeah, Chairman, Commissioners, we've had some preliminary discussions about that already. I know we've in-house, thought about, that being a requirement. Obviously, there's a cost associated with that request. And
A cost by who?
by the applicant.
See, I would disagree with that. Most of the firms that I work and consult for, and even my own projects, Revit is the big thing.
Right.
If you're already doing your floor plans in Revit, you're already creating your models.
Right.
And so it takes just as long to do a 3-dimensional view as it is to do a static 2-dimensional view.
So just out of curiosity, would you require that at the pre-app stage, or would you require that at an actual submittal stage? And where I'm going with this is that, you know, I agree with you 100% that the Targets and some of the, you know, the Wendy's and Pandas and all that, you know, they can, but, you know, we've done 60 pre-application meetings this year. And I would say at least a third of those are mom and pop coming in off the street wanting to do something. You know, so to get a 3D rendering for mom and pop coming in, you know, that's not as easy as the Wendy's and the Starbucks and some of these others. You know, I mean, you know, they'd have to go hire a professional to be able to do that. So again, you know, we've talked about it. We've started, you know, looking at you know, the ability to require that. When do we require it? Do we need it at pre-app, or do we need it at first submittal? Because we all like the way they look, Commissioner. There's no question about it. So
I don't know that it's needed at pre-app. I know all the pre-apps that I've done with the city, I've always included it. I got one coming probably next week that will include it.
Yep.
But it's because I want to make sure that you know, my design intent is driven home. But at pre-app, I think it's so preliminary anyway. I don't see a requirement there. I think that if we're coming through as a major development review process, you know, basically like where we came in tonight with, you know, with both projects that came in tonight, I think that'd be an appropriate time. Because professionals should be, you know, involved at that point anyway, especially if it's commercial.
Okay. No, I made a note of it, Commissioner, and I'll bring the subject up again with, you know, my team and Development Services Department, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
All right. So, based on the fact that we are recommending staff to, one, look into notifications, looking into the Heritage District parking. What were your items? It's been so long.
Keep the public process. Do not
Okay, public.
remove zoning from the process.
Okay. And then there was one power pedestals, right? Those are the,
Power pedestals, and then I just asked for the 3D renderings.
and 3D renderings. That's not really for text
No,
25-01.
that's-
I'm just saying,
that's-
I'm just saying for a 25-01.
It's more like a,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. I think that's all the recommendations that we had for 25-01, right?
Correct.
Okay. That being said, do I have a motion to approve TXT 25-01 with those recommendations to staff? So moved. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
That motion passes 3-1. That takes us to agenda item 8, reports from commission and/or staff.
Talk a little bit about future planning commission meetings. Today was the deadline for the notification process to make the November 10th meeting, so we will not be having a meeting on November 10th. The next scheduled meeting is November 24th. That's the week of Thanksgiving. You notice I put no meeting, though, subject to change. If something comes in and we need to get to that meeting, then, you know, we've essentially got 3 weeks from today to be able to meet that notification requirement. You know, I don't like going a month without having a meeting, but right now, you know, I don't have anything for the 10th, and we're 3 weeks out on the 24th. We're coming back to you on December 8th. We have regular zoning items, and we also have a legislative update from Rudy that's coming your way on December 8th. The December 22nd meeting, obviously, because of the proximity to Christmas and the unavailability of city staff typically that week, we will not be meeting in December. Just a couple of things on the horizon that I don't have on this sheet. We've got a new planning commissioner that's being sworn in next week, I believe it is. So I hope to have him or she, I'm not sure, available at that December 8th meeting. And then we will start coming back to y'all in January. We're going to start a quarterly process bringing informational items to you, similar to what we did a couple of weeks ago, not only from a legislative standpoint, but just from an educational standpoint, not for staff, for you, and for the general public as well. So I'm really looking forward to 2026. Obviously, in January, we'll have a chair and vice chair election, and we're going to do a few other things in January that I'll share with you all later. But that just kind of gets you up to speed. So no meeting on the 10th. We're moving towards November 24th. We'll see if that, what we have come in for that. If I get anything in the next 3 weeks, then we'll have the meeting on the November 24th. I know for a fact I've got December 8th locked up now. So with that, that concludes my reports from staff, and thank you, sir.
Awesome. And I don't think we need an executive session.
No.
Anybody? No? All right. No? Okay. Okay.
On Legistar today, for this meeting, when you opened up the agenda, it was Parks and Recreation Commission agenda, not ours. Just FYI. On Legistar, when you open up today, and you go to our meeting, and you go to details and go to agenda, and you click that agenda, it opened, for me, it opened up the Parks and Recreation agenda.
So it didn't have any of our stuff on it? It was all?
No, under details, it had everything, but there's a separate details and
For the-
agenda. When you open the agenda, it took you to the Parks and Recreation agenda. Just FYI.
Yeah, I've just opened it. It might have been an earlier thing, so they've at least corrected any issues. So it does open now as Planning and Zoning Commission.
Because I opened it at 5 o'clock.
5:01.
Thank you,
That's all
fellas.
I'm gonna-
Did we adjourn?
Nope, not yet. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All right. We are adjourned.